In this video, we will talk about Comstice Webphone Gadget for Cisco Finesse and Webex contact centers. Comstice Webphone Gadget is an add-on on the Finesse agent page. It helps to make and receive calls using the web browser without installing any software applications or using any Cisco phones by the agents. For making and receiving calls, we will use the Finesse call control features available, so they can hold, transfer, and end the call using those buttons already available. You don't need Cisco Jabber, Cisco MRA, mobile remote access, or Cisco hard phones for this solution. Both audio and the signaling are encrypted. Audio is secure RTP and signaling is HTTPS based. This solution also supports VDI virtual desktop Citrix scenarios. On the UCCE solutions, it uses mobile agent features, and on the UCCX, it uses the extend and connect feature of the call manager. Comstice Webphone Gadget also supports Webex contact centers. Obviously, Webex CC is already Finesse-based, but Webex CC is completely different. The same feature set is also available for the Webex contact centers as well. So what are the use cases, benefits of this solution? Our main goal is to avoid installing any software applications on agent PCs. So that will help your operations to reduce the IT overhead, eliminate kind of agent PC related issues, and also will help you to kind of simplify agent experience. Because all the communication channels we're going to use are encrypted, you can also run this solution without any VPN, and I'll explain a little bit more about how we secure the communication and how we protect your Finesse servers. Because there's no additional softphone or hardphone agent needs to use, you can reduce the kind of call handle time on each agent by simplifying their agent web interface. This solution is an on-premises solution. You can run it in the cloud, but it's not a shared service. It is dedicated to your organization, and you can decide where to host it, your network, your partner's network, or hosted by Comstice. It also has an optional feature for agent screen recording. Obviously, since we are trying to avoid installing any software applications on agent PCs, another scenario is screen recording. If you have screen recording, there's a screen recording gadget we offer as Comstice, so that you can start the screen recording using the web browser, and it will record the full screen, not just the browser. Because there is no specialist PC, there's no software installation on agent side, on agent PCs, you can easily migrate or extend your contact center operations to outsources. You don't need to have comprehensive IT migration, IT integration type of tasks. So, how are we going to access the Finesse agent web page securely from the public internet? Obviously, we don't want to expose the Finesse server directly to the public internet, and we will be using web proxies, reverse proxies, and if you have web application firewalls, you can use those as well. On the external side, there's going to be an external publicly available fully qualified domain name, host name, that will point to your external firewall. And then there's going to be two separate SSL certificate sessions. First session will be for your external host name, which will be terminated on your proxy server. Comstice WebRTC Gateway can act as a reverse proxy. Those servers are just Linux boxes running services, different services as Docker containers. If you already have web application firewalls, they also offer proxy functionality. And if you're using Webex service, Cisco offers Cisco NetScaler as a web application firewall. Internally, you probably already have the internal fully qualified domain name, which runs the local SSL on the Finesse server itself. So how the Finesse login will work? The agent will launch the external fully qualified domain name or the host name, which will go through the web proxy through your firewall. You don't need a specialist firewall. You can use any standard firewall. This is just a network address translation based firewall. And then through the web proxy, the web request will reach to the Finesse server on the internal network. After the Finesse login is complete, Webphone Gadget will automatically register itself or will try to register itself to the WebRTC gateway. And then the WebRTC gateway, its role is to convert those WebRTC sessions into SIP sessions. So in the eyes of the call manager and the Comstice SIP proxy, those web browser sessions are just SIP sessions. But the good thing is, because we are using WebRTC, we're not exposing any SIP ports like Cisco Jabber does, for example. It exposes 5061 common SIP port, which is prone to attacks. But in our case, we don't do that. We are using WebRTC, where ports are configurable. When there is an incoming call, let's assume that there's an internal caller making a call, either calling the agent's Finesse extension directly or calling the call center pilot number. Once the decision is made and agent is selected, the call manager will try to reach out to the external SIP extension of the web phone agent. That SIP extension is actually behind the SIP proxy, and using the SIP trunk and the route patterns, call manager will push that request towards the SIP proxy, which will then also forward that call request to the WebRTC gateway, and eventually the call request will arrive to the web phone. And the codec negotiation and the call negotiations is going to be between the Cisco IP phone and the web phone itself. Once the call is established, there's going to be two call legs. One call leg is for the internal call, which is going to be the SIP call, and the other call leg from WebRTC gateway to the WebRTC session on the agent's web browser. As you can see, the WebRTC session is encrypted. WebRTC has to be encrypted because otherwise it's not going to work as a protocol. But internal audio stream, you can decide not to encrypt it because it's an internal leg of the call, so that you don't have to enable TLS and the whole call manager network just because you want to use Webphone Gadget. The internet facing leg of the call is already encrypted. So you might think, is the WebRTC gateway single point of failure? How does it scale? How reliable it is? Does it have high availability? WebRTC gateway, if it fails, it cannot recover the existing encrypted audio session, but it can do a reconnect and create a new session. It can run you can run multiple WebRTC gateways to make it highly available with load balancing, round robin features available on the web proxies and the DNS. In terms of scalability, if you think about what WebRTC gateway does, it doesn't do any transcoding, because these sessions often use codecs like G711, ULO, ALO, or ILBC or ISAC, which are supported by the call manager as well as the web browsers. So often transcoding is not needed. The only thing that you need to think about is in the scalability is the bandwidth requirement. So how many concurrent sessions you're going to run, and if you're running G711, for example, what's going to be the bandwidth requirements? Do you have enough bandwidth allocated for that NIC card? The external call will be pretty similar. Instead of coming from an internal IP phone, the call will come from the voice gateway. It will follow the same path, and eventually the call legs will be between the voice gateway and the web phone browser session through the WebRTC gateway. Outbound calls are pretty similar. The user will start the outbound call from the Finesse web interface. Finesse will receive the outbound call request and signal the call manager to create two call legs, one to the WebRTC session, one to the web phone, and the other one to the destination. So then call manager will merge those two call legs. These are just signaling. The audio stream again will go through the voice gateway, WebRTC gateway, and eventually to the browser session that Comstice Webphone is running. In the Webex contact center scenario, we have two cases. Webex CC is very similar to Cisco UCC. It in fact uses Finesse. In that case, experience will be pretty much the same. Cisco offers hosting for the third-party applications. You can actually ask Cisco to host Comstice servers, or your partner can host it if you prefer, and then you will be able to run this. This cube, if there's any VPN or if it's hosted by Cisco, you don't need this cube. You don't need the SPC feature on the Comstice SIP proxy either. If it's the Webex CC topology, which is a completely different solution, in that case, you have a bit of an advantage. The WebRTC gateway SIP phone sessions can actually directly register to the PBX, that IP PBX that you're using. So for example, if you're using Call Manager, those SIP sessions can actually register directly to the Call Manager, so you can eliminate the Comstice SIP proxy. If it's a Comstice-hosted scenario that you prefer, in that case, there's going to be some sort of a session border controller element. We can either communicate with a cube, or if there's no cube, we can provide another instance of Comstice SIP proxy, which also has an SPC session border controller feature. VDI virtual desktop and Citrix scenarios, they're not very good for the real-time communications, and in this case we can still make the WebRTC session, web phone session work on the VDI scenarios with a workaround. Agent will log into the Finesse through the VDI session, and then agent will use the local browser on the local PC and log into the web phone. You can even enable the single sign-on with multi-factor authentication to make it secure. So the audio stream is actually bypassing the VDI scenario. It's directly from agent PC to the hosted Comstice WebRTC gateway, and you will use Finesse session just as a remote control. So once the agent is logged into the local browser for the web phone session, she can minimize this browser session and doesn't need to do anything, doesn't need to touch that browser session, and everything will be controlled. All the call control, termination, initiation features will be done through the Finesse agent web interface. Both silent monitoring and audio recording will be different in Comstice Webphone Gadget scenarios. Obviously, there is no Cisco IP phone or softphone, therefore there is no built-in bridge. So the silent monitoring will be through the Comstice WebRTC gateway and the session border controller, and they will create an additional audio stream, like a copy of the audio stream, two-way audio stream, and this audio stream will be pushed to the silent monitoring gadget on the supervisor Finesse interface. Supervisor can be running on the public internet, she can be working from the office, doesn't matter. The audio stream for the silent monitoring will come from the Comstice WebRTC gateway RTP proxy feature. And the same for the audio recording. You can use your Calabrio variant nice recording solutions, but the recording stream will be delivered through the Comstice SIP proxy using the SIPREC protocol. That's the industry standard protocol that all the mainstream recording solutions support, so that you don't need to have Cisco Cube, or you don't need to have any kind of additional software applications or a topology change or any network change. This is straight from the SIP proxy to the recording solution using SIPREC. SIPREC also includes the meta tag for each call, so you can kind of classify the call, and they will be reachable through the existing recording solution easily. So if you have multiple call manager clusters, multiple Cisco contact center clusters, for example, you have maybe one cluster running call manager and UCCE, other CUCM cluster is running call manager and UCCX, you can still use and share the Comstice topology, SIP proxy, and the WebRTC gateway across multiple clusters. They are quite flexible because it's just a SIP aware network. It doesn't know anything about your UCCX, UCCE. They will be communicating with your separate clusters through the SIP trunks. In terms of high availability, there are different layers of high availability. Obviously, the first high availability starts on the web browser, web proxy level. If the web proxy that helps us to access Finesse web page is not available, the external address of the Finesse server can fail over to the secondary web proxy. And after that, Comstice WebRTC gateway can also fail over between primary and secondary, or side A, side B. There's no primary, secondary here. They're all running actively. You can even do load balancing, round robin, send some calls to side A, some calls to side B if you prefer. And then Comstice SIP proxy will do the same, run multiple SIP trunks for the failover. If it's a Comstice-Hosted Solution and if there is no VPN between Comstice and your network, we highly recommend to use session border controllers, because the communication will go through the public internet, and the session border controllers provide additional kind of security. If you don't have Cube, Comstice can provide an instance of Comstice SBC running on your local network. If there's a VPN, there's going to be a VPN. In that case, there's no SBC needed. We can do direct SIP trunk through the VPN. So what are the steps to kind of deploy this project? Comstice will provide pre-built, pre-installed Linux servers. All of our services are running on Docker containers. So if you have your own Linux build, like maybe you're using Red Hat or another Linux distribution, we can use Docker containers and bring all of our services up on your network. For UCCE, you're going to configure the mobile agent. You can enable mobile agent on the agent desk settings, and also you will configure on the call manager, you will configure the LCP, RCP ports for the UCCE mobile agent scenario. In UCCX, you will be using Cisco CTI remote device feature. So obviously UCCX doesn't support non-Cisco phones, and Cisco CTI remote device feature helps us to simulate Cisco phone and helps us to use third-party phones for the UCCX agents. And on the call manager, we will have a SIP trunk to the Comstice SIP proxy with the route patterns and maybe a range of extensions, SIP extensions, that route pattern is pointing towards Comstice SIP proxy. If you have any questions, if you would like to see how Finesse Webphone Gadget works, and if you would like to do proof of concept trials, please reach out to us from comstice.com and request a callback, or send an email to sales@comstice.com.